Getting quality sound on location is going to save so much time and hassle in the post-production process.
The most important thing is the dialogue. 99.9% of the time. There is that 0.1, but that's a whole other animal.
The word ADR in my world is kind of an evil word.
I hate doing ADR, so I wouldn't want to do it either. The kind of stuff you have to fix in post is not the fun stuff. We're always the last in line, so we always have the least amount of time.
My name is Fernando Delgado, and I'm a production sound mixer.
My name is Frank Scheuring, and I'm a sound editor and re-recording mixer.
So then the whole idea of fix it in post is kind of BS.
Absolutely. So welcome to the dub stage. This is my buddy Mike Orlowski. It's my mixing partner, and we've done almost a half dozen films here together since 2015. And we thought we'd just kind of walk you through our process.
Awesome.
Usually when Mike and I work together, we're splitting up duties, like maybe I'll handle the dialogue edit and he'll cut backgrounds, and then we'll split up sound effects. Yep. If there's a Foley team, then they're handling the Foley, right? And then music edit will be whoever's available first.
Right.
Whoever gets done with their job first, right? And just wanted to give you an idea of kind of what we're looking at usually. So here's some dialogue from this. This is off the record, directed by Eric Steele. So we've got some production audio here.
I have come here to chew bubble gum and make some noise, and I'm all out of bubble gum.
There's a lot of funny moments in this thing. So obviously, you know, you got studio mic, right? And then you've got where you're just used to out in the field, you know. With an independent film, something where there's like multiple actors in the scene and a lob and boom and whatever, we got to go through and we got to choose what's the best mic, right? What's the best mic? What's the best placement? Get the best sound. In this case, the AF looks like there's pretty much one choice per actor or per scene here, except for this, which is, I think,
Come out to Detroit, we'll get together, we'll make some noise.
So a ventilation shaft, which looks like,
It's about 2 frames out of sync.
yeah, well, I think maybe this is intentional. They might have put some effects on it or something. So let's ignore those first ones.
Come out to Detroit, we'll get together, we'll make some noise.
And then let's listen to these other two without those ones, just in case.
Come out to Detroit, we'll get together, we'll make some noise.
I'm not exactly sure what the difference is there, but in my opinion, the first two we listened to sound better, so we'll just mute these ones out. And I guess that's sort of selecting mics, right? Sometimes you'll find that editors will double up stuff to make it louder. Earlier we were talking about communicating between production and post, right? Obviously there was no communication on this, so we don't know what we're getting.
If there were notes on these files when they were being recorded, how would you see them?
Well, it depends on what it was edited in, right? Because some NLEs don't transfer over the metadata.
If it was cut in Media Composer and brought into to Pro Tools, you can see a lot of the metadata in the tracks. So what's really great here is after Frank has done the initial organization from editorial, you see it's brought into different food groups. We have some color coding here that just kind of identifies in the DAW where each sound element lives. There's, we could jump into one of my favorite parts, which would be a temp mix. And there's some quick things that we can do to make dialogue better. One is a high pass and a low pass filter.
Filters, yeah.
We generally don't need anything below 80 when it comes to dialogue. And that's where your air conditioner, compressors, all the stuff that you're not able to turn off when you're in the moment, you know, filming. And just by removing that, you're already in a little bit of a better place. Just kind of helps the dialogue be the star. Getting that to the director as early as possible helps us kind of define what the soundtrack's going to be, because we're coming in and post sound months after maybe the film has been shot, and editorials. There's been a lot of sounds that the director and the picture editor have been listening to and they love. The sound design that we're going to bring to the table is all new stuff, and sometimes you need a little bit of time to get used to something new.
Right.
So the earlier in the temp, if we can put some effort into sound design, this film has quite a bit of gunfire. If we bring in new guns, they might sound sonically better, but they're still new, and they might need to kind of get some soak time before the director's going to say, yeah, this really works for my film.
This line in particular,
Yeah.
it's a live room.
Yeah. So while Mike was talking, I just did a quick little edit just without listening. And I drug the head out. Looks like people were quiet on set right there, so that's awesome. But there's an edit there, so I pulled this out. I think this is the door close. Yeah. And then we go into there, and then looks like either maybe they chose a second take, a different take for this line, or maybe someone stepped on the line or something. Who knows what happens, but you can see it's not continuous here.
Bubble gum and make some noise. And I'm all out of bubble gum.
Right, so I just kind of smoothed that out, but yeah, it's really live, right? So let's send it to Isotope.
Would it be advisable for somebody like me, if I'm in a room like this and I'm recording this, should I be breaking out Fernie pads and trying to, I mean, this space, just by looking at it, is pretty big and huge. It's going to be live regardless. Do I try to set some stuff up off camera to try to deaden those sounds for you guys? Would you notice a difference in a room this big?
Well, you're seeing the room. So, right, it's the right space, right? So you want it to sound like the room. You don't want it to be dead, but is it better for it to be natural or for us to try to recreate it? I don't know. My concern really isn't the liveliness of the room, it's the noise.
Right.
You know?
Because if camera sees a big space, then we're in a big space.
Right.
Where you're right on and you're thinking is that if you're shooting in this because there's a certain production value of maybe a shallow depth of field where all that is kind of blurry.
Right.
But it just has the look and feel of it, but we are so close on our actor's performance.
Right.
Then around there all if possible. Yeah, please do, because if camera never sees the wide shot, then our audio is not going to match. It's not going to feel like it lives in the same space.
Right. Yeah, a lot of times we'll do shots, let's say near a water fountain, right? Or a busy city street, but the camera never sees the source. And so what I always tell my clients is the noise doesn't bother me as long as the context is right.
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 Sure.
If it fits within the context of the shot and we're going to see it and there's something to explain that noise, then let's capture it.
Yeah. And likely in a situation like this, it's the trailer, it's going to have loud music, whatever. Some of this noise probably is going to come through anyway.
But, I mean, it's very easy to quickly reduce that. Let me pull up the voice to noise real quick. We learn it real quick.
So it's just quickly sampling the background noise in the scene.
And then we just check it with a preview.
I have come here to chew bubble gum.
Not hearing, any aliasing or artifacts or something. Just render it real quick. Let me get out of here. And remember, we've duped the tracks down so that we have the original. I go back, render it, and there we're good. And of course, in this one, there was an edit, so we'll do the same thing to that clip to keep it equal.
And it will just smooth it all out. So
Yeah. Ideally, they'd be on the same track, but there was maybe a different take or something here that they cut to. Maybe they liked it better or something.
If we're going to be doing noise reduction and stuff like that, some mixers don't want you to do that. If I was cutting this and sending it to somebody else, They don't want you to do noise reduction. Some want you to do. Okay? So you got to talk to them. And if I am doing it, then I'm creating dupes of the tracks.
Right.
Right. So we'll duplicate the tracks.
And then affect
Everything.
those. Right.
And then I'll take those dupes and make them inactive or mute them out or,
Right.
whatever's needed so that all the stuff is there, right? But usually I'm doing noise reduction after I've already edited everything. So then they have the cleaned up, edited dialogue tracks, but they're not noise reduced, right?
Right.
So then, since I sent that back, I can just highlight those clips that I had before and hit render. And now I have the cleaned up audio here, but then I have the original down here. So if I over process it too much when it gets to this stage or something, they don't like it,
Right.
they can go back to the original one.
You get into something like this hilarious scene down here with the air duct.
Come out to Detroit. We'll get together. We'll make some noise.
Now that's going to be a little bit more difficult because you don't want to really get rid of the environment.
Right.
If anything, we'd probably accentuate it in the mix, not in the edit.
Right. Right. Okay. So what would you do to accentuate it?
We can do a couple things. So the first is we'll just send the output to a new track, and the new track is going to create an auxiliary.
Right.
And then this one we'll just call it dialogue verb, and that will give us the ability to send some of the signal
Right.
to another track. And on this dialogue verb, we'll pick a reverb. In this case, we'll do really nice tool called Altiverb. And Altiverb is what's called a convolution reverb. So you can sample environments, real environments, famous recording studios,
Right.
performance halls, and so you use a method to capture an impulse. We can put this into the software, and then any sound that we put through this program is going to sound like it was in that space. Yeah, let's try this stairwell. So we'll just load it up, and then we can play the scene.
Come out to Detroit. We'll get together. We'll make some noise.
So just quickly, you got like a little bit of of room on there. It sounds a little better. We can put an EQ, and then it kind of gets us in the ballpark. Now, if this is a temp, we send this as a stereo bounce to our director, and we can start kind of making some decisions of, do we need anything else? Foley might come in there to kind of accentuate, maybe a little bit more of a ring of sheet metal and make it feel like he's actually suspended, instead of probably the camera setup, which was on the ground
Right.
and was a little muffled maybe with furniture blankets for the goal of getting the dialogue recorded as clean as it was.
Well, and speaking of sound effects, it looks like, so we've got the... That's really nice.
Yeah, it's
That's
pretty
really
good.
nice.
Yeah.
Come out to Detroit. We'll get together. We'll make some noise.
Now the sound effects of moving around in the ventilation duct has the similar kind of characteristics of the dialogue.
Right.
We're getting everything to kind of feel like they live in the same place, which is very important with sound mixing, is that everything spatially feels that it's in the right place. With the edit, it's about every one of those bumps of the ventilation duct weren't recorded when the actor was moving. Those were recorded later. The editor just places it in perfect time, so it's happening at the right time. It feels like it's in the same place, and it feels like it matches the movement of our actor.
If I can record this stuff in the field and get that movement, not focusing on dialogue, is that helping you guys?
Absolutely. When we did a film a while back, we recorded at a police station, and all of the sound effects were sounds that we captured in that location. And for a film like a tension horror thriller kind of film, when the actor is breathing and talking, and the sounds that are occurring have the same decay time and feel like they're in the same space,
Right.
It kind of heightens the fear, because when you're watching the actor walk down the hallway, you feel like you're walking with her down the hallway. Sound reports, having that flagged as wild, having the script soup mentioning something about that there's wild recordings of the of the ventilation shaft lets us know, like, oh, there's some stuff there that we could go to and put it in the scene.
One of the things that I do a lot is if I have, let's say it's a tracking shot of an actor walking or whatever, and if I've got, especially if my lav placement is like really money, and I'm really happy with the way that sounds, a lot of times I'll tell, if I'm booming it myself or if I've got a boom person, I'll tell them to go for the feet.
Oh, wow.
Right? That way I'm always getting, because like if I know that my dialogue is good, then what are you going to use the boom for? Right? So I'll tell them, swing that boom down, and even if their feet are out of the shot, let's get the footsteps.
Even if the footsteps were done in Foley, that would help with timing,
Yeah.
Right,
making it feel more natural.
right, which I wouldn't have even thought of.
Production steps are a lifesaver for us if we can hear them. Again, we might not use them, but just seeing some modulation on the waveform just lets us know that, hey, we need to place them in there. Sometimes in a temp mix like we're doing here, we might have a sound effect in a library of footsteps that were just recorded, and it's, male footsteps on concrete, perfect for the scene. Just having the modulation there
That way you can just place them quickly.
saves us, good 50% of our editing time.
That's awesome.
What if the air was on when he was in the shaft, right? So we could probably, I hope I can quickly find some air conditioning, right? There we go.
See, that to me sounds better just because it would almost sounds like the air is hitting the mic.
So this,
Right.
Let's toss it in real quick.
Come on to Detroit. We'll get together. We'll make some noise.
A little more scary, I guess, because that thing's running. So let's listen to it real quick without it.
Come on to Detroit. We'll get together. We'll make some noise.
And you're muted there, and then unmute, and we'll hear it again with the air.
Come on to Detroit. We'll get together. We'll make some noise.
So that, to me, feels like it's more in the right place, right?
Right.
Yeah. When we're mixing a film, a good question is, what level should we be, at? And there are tools out there that will give you that number. The editing platforms are now incorporating that loudness meter into the software. If you don't have that, the 1K tone is a great thing to put into your timeline and listen to where it's slightly uncomfortable. Like if you had to listen to it all day long, it's going to be a little bit of annoying. That's a good starting level. And then once you turn that 1K tone off, don't touch your monitor and just start mixing the dialogue and try to get dialogue in a nice, consistent range where it doesn't get too loud, doesn't get too quiet. When you are mixing, it's very important to separate sound into different, I like to call them food groups. So you have all of the dialogue, all of the sound effects, all of the music. We typically call that stems. And a stem is just a recorded segment of the film or television show or video product that has just that element. So a dialogue stem will have all of the original language recording of that film. We might make a foreign stem, which is the same movie, same content, but then just re-recorded in a different language so we could sell it in another country. Sound effect stems, all of the sounds that were added to the film or captured on set, that is a footstep, a car door close, an explosion, that we have as another separate group aside from dialogue and aside from music. Music is another stem that we might segment into two stems. We might have a score stem, which is original recorded music for the film that we have licensed into perpetuity. We own that. It's usually a work for hire. Then you have a licensed music stem. A licensed music stem is you're now purchasing the ability to use a piece of recorded music, like a popular piece of music that you'd hear on the radio, for use in your film or television show. If it's a TV show, you might pay one rate while it's live on television, and then when you syndicate it out, you would use a different piece of music that's a little bit cheaper. Having two different stems allows you to replace that piece of music without having to go back and remix your movie.
Yeah, and like Mike was saying about the stems and foreign language stuff, right? So in order to do that, you have to have what's called a fully filled M&E, right? That means when you take out that dialogue, you still hear everything else. You hear the actor's movement, whether it's they're eating, right? They're touching their plate with their fork or whatever. That all has to get added in so that when the foreign language goes on top, it's still there, right? And usually that's done in Foley. And the whole act of Foley recording is an art. Some of these guys are just absolutely amazing, and they'll perform to the picture, right? They have it on big screen, and they got all their fun toys and gadgets and tools, and they'll recreate all the sounds so that we can have that, and it really does make it kind of come alive, right? Mm-hmm. Most new filmmakers, indie filmmakers, are probably not going to be able to afford Foley in that sense, hiring somebody, but it can be done at home,
Right.
Just watching your cut on an iPad or a computer or whatever, and having as nice of a microphone as you can, in a quiet space, the right microphone in the right place, right? All that. Mm-hmm. Just do that, and you can perform the stuff yourself. Door handles, door opens and closes, setting things down, anything really that is touched by the characters. You can do all that, and then it helps the film come alive.
My biggest objective when I'm on set is to capture the performance and make it a usable one. The word ADR in my world is kind of an evil word. We don't want our actors to have to do ADR because we were not able to capture their performance.
Mm-hmm. The actors probably love you for that, right? Because they don't really want to do ADR. I hate doing ADR, so I wouldn't want to do it either. And some people can't afford to have ADR.
Right.
Right.
Well, I know that when they did this shoot in particular, everybody traveled in and then traveled out. So the budget didn't allow to be traveling people all over the place so that they could do ADR on this. And that seems to be the case on a lot of projects.
Sure.
Yeah. So in the instances when you do, what are you using? Am I still using a really expensive studio condenser? Or am I having a conversation with the sound mixer to try to match the microphones and the mic pre's?
That's ideal. Ideal is using the same exact microphone. We just did a short film where there was some ADR required and there was no money. And the director, who was also the main actor, had a sound guy come to her house, and they played back on an iPad.
I've done that.
Or something like that, or an iPad or a laptop, one of the two, and just recorded it wild, like no real sync, just as close as she could get. And we got a few takes, and I just had to sync it up, just chop it up, and it worked great.
Right.
But it was also the same room where the film was shot.
Yep. I'm with you. If it's the original performance that we're after, capturing it the right way at the right time, right place, it's perfect.
Yeah. That's definitely the way to go. For independent filmmakers, though, even just doing wild tracks at the end of the day, just so there's options for the dialogue editor to pull from, even if it's one word or one syllable
well, that's
or
a great
whatever.
idea, just a suggestion
to
to directors.
Or something in the line.
Another good opportunity for wild takes is, let's say we know that the two actors are in the same space and they're going to compete with each other. They're going to walk over each other's lines.
Right.
As long as the camera's is showing this in the wide shot, it's fine for overlapping. When we're doing the close-ups for the ISOs, the overlaps might still happen. A great thing to do is to tell your actor to, if there is an overlap, to just say it again before cutting.
I gotcha.
And then what you have is the overlap for the performance, and then you just echo the line again. And if we need to use that to kind of smooth out the editing from take to take, it helps us a lot.
That's a good idea too. When my job is done and you guys are starting on a project, let's say you don't have any time to get it all done, you don't have the budget or the resources to allocate to dialogue and sound effects and backgrounds and music, how do you mix a project like that?
The most important thing is the dialogue, because that tells the story. 99.9% of the time. There is that 0.1 film or short or something that doesn't have any dialogue, but that's a whole other animal.
Right.
But yeah, dialogue's number one. Focus on cleaning up the edits, smoothing it out, making sure the levels are relatively similar, right? And then from there, if there was music cut in, I would probably just jump to music to balance that. And then anything else you can fill in the amount of time that you have, go for that.
Right.
Start with the obvious stuff. So, but I mean, the way I usually work for editing is I start big and then go small, right? So ambiences first, and then obvious stuff, car explosions or crashes or gunshots or whatever, and then down to the narrow stuff, right? Because then when you run out of time, at least you've covered like the main thing.
Right.
One of the pitfalls that you get into, or I see early sound teams get into, is they'll start and try to perfect the first scene and spend all of their time in that first scene and not get to the end of the film. So think about it as, what can I do throughout the global pass of the film once?
So then the whole idea of fix it in post is kind of BS. Like, we really do want to try to capture these performances. So when we have filmmakers that are saying, don't worry about it, we'll fix it in post, that we need to break people of that.
Absolutely. All they're doing is
It's a bad-
costing time and money.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, now, for people that work in post, it's more work, right? But the kind of stuff you have to fix in post is not the fun stuff to do.
Right.
It's not creating sounds or cutting sounds to explosions or something. It's tedious.
Right.
Oh, this is a problem and we have to get it done.
You know, there's a time allotted based on the budget that you have, and as the sound team, we can do a number of things, but if solving problems through sound is the most use of our time, the creative additions that we get to add is going to be smaller. So what is that going to translate to the filmmaker? You're going to have, you know, sound is going to be cleaned up, but it's going to be more vanilla or low-level options
more
when it
stale.
comes to sound design. The music choices might be from, you know, purchase from a library versus having a custom score. You know, when you're looking at how to allocate your budget, by reducing the ADR on actors, you might have thousands of dollars that you can now spend to get you that composer, to get you that visual effects shot that you wanted.
And the time you need to do it.
And the time,
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the key. We're always the last in line, so we always have the least amount of time. And if everything goes past the time budgeted and the deadline doesn't move,
Right.
we
All the
just
more
get
reason to communicate
absolutely.
with your production staff people.
Number one.
Why there needs to be an open line of communication between post-production and production.
The only time I've communicated with production sound was when it was all from the same company. I worked for the post house and they were shooting, and the guy worked with me, you know?
That's one of the reasons I want to get my company into post, because it also is a checks and balances, right? I can put people in the field and then have people on the other side being like, yeah, this person is recording solid
Yeah,
Right.
tracks for us.
absolutely. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that's the goal.
We should talk.
Yeah.